If you've been around for a while, then you know how much I care about financial freedom for all. One thing that often gets in the way of that is debt. That's why I'm happy to announce that I've partnered with an amazing organization called Juno. Juno helps you get lower interest rates by using the power of group negotiation. It is a completely free resource that you can use to secure lower interest rates on new and existing student loans. Head to the link in the episode show notes to find out more. This is the Dreamers Podcast, episode 37 with Teneshia Jackson Warner.
What I would tell my younger self is, hey, little girl, I know you hear all of these adults saying that it's hard and that there's not enough, but I want to tell you the truth about it. The truth about money is it is abundant and it will come, but it doesn't even need to be your most motivating, driving thing in life. Let passion and purpose be your motivator and your driving thing in life. And trust me, money will come. You don't have to hold on so tight. You don't have to worry. You can trust God that money is abundant.
Hello, world. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I am Stephanie Anne-Lyse, also known as Anne-Lyse Wealth. I'm a financial coach and an author. I self-published my first book, Dream of Legacy, a guide to help dreamers reach financial independence and build generational wealth. In this podcast, I'll have conversations with experts and thought leaders who dare to follow their dreams. You'll hear about their journey and their money stories. I hope it inspires you, dreamers out there, to live life on your own terms.
Come on, dreamers, let's change the world!
This podcast is brought to you by Dream of Legacy. Check out dreamoflegacy.com for resources to assist you on your journey to financial independence. Before we get into today's episode, please take a couple minutes to go into Apple Podcasts if you're listening from an Apple device to rate and review the podcast. If you appreciate the free resources that are provided in this podcast, then the best way to let me know is to do just that. Reviews help the podcast be more visible and it helps other dreamers discover the podcast. So thank you. I appreciate you. And now let's get back to today's episode. Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Lyse Wealth, and I'm so happy that you tuned in today for episode 37. Today, I'm chatting with Teneshia Jackson Warner, the founder and chief executive officer of Egamy Group, a leading multicultural marketing and communications firm in Manhattan with clients such as Procter & Gamble, Target, Verizon Wireless, and many more. Teneshia is the first Black women-led company to win the Cannes Lions Grand Prix Award, and she's also an Emmy Award winner. Teneshia has been an entrepreneur for 14 years. She founded the Dream Project Symposium, an annual empowerment conference that helps thousands of entrepreneurs, creatives, and career dreamers plan and achieve their goals. Through this platform, Teneshia has spoken to more than 150,000 dreamers across the country. And that's what inspired her to release her latest book, The Big Stretch, 90 Days to Expand Your Dreams, Crush Your Goals, and Create Your Own Success. So today on the podcast, we'll be talking, you guessed it, dreams, how to identify the type of dreamer you are, which can help you determine which path you should go on. We talk about Teneshia's entrepreneurial journey, how she left her cushy corporate job to move to New York and start her company. She shares the most important lessons she learned over the past 14 years as an entrepreneur and the past 20 years chasing her dreams. I think you'll enjoy this episode. So here is Teneshia Jackson Warner. Teneshia, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
Thank you, Anne-Lyse, for having me here. I'm uber excited to be a part of the Dreamers Podcast and a guest in your dream community. Hopefully this will go so well that you'll allow me to be a part of your dreamer family.
So do you mind sharing a little bit about you and what you do?
Absolutely. So let me first start by saying, like many of you, I'm sure you can throw many titles out to describe who you are, right? And there's titles that I will share with you, of course, from an entrepreneur to a wife, friend, all of that good stuff. But what I want to set the stage is, if you were to ask someone, give me one word to describe Teneshia, I am a dreamer. And by that means I believe in the impossible. I'm willing to set my own path in the ways that I achieve things, and really also willing to be called crazy. So the title you can put beside Teneshia is dreamer, but the other stuff that I will fill in is I am an entrepreneur. I've been on an entrepreneur journey for 14 years. I would say I've been on my dream journey for almost 2 decades. And that started when I left a cushy corporate job in hopes of living a life with purpose. In addition to being an entrepreneur, I am also a supporter of Dreamers. I have a platform called the Dream Project, and I spend a lot of time doing speaking engagements, writing books. I'm sure we'll talk about one of those entitled The Big Stretch, and basically an empowerment initiative to inspire dreamers. So that's a little bit of my background. I'm also a wife and a friend and all those things that help sort of round you out as a person.
I love it. You know, we are all about dreaming big on this podcast. So I'm so glad to hear that you identify as a dreamer. I also, similarly to you, I left my cushy corporate job going on 2 years. So it's just good to connect with people who've been doing this for a long time. And it's just very inspiring. I can't wait to get into your story. So can you tell us a little bit about your company and what you do?
Yes. So the name of my company is Egamy Group, and it is a multicultural marketing and communications firm that is headquartered in New York, although we have employees across the nation. And our niche, we work with 50 Fortune 100 brands to reach the growing diverse audiences within this nation and beyond. And when I say diverse audiences, the segments that I'm referencing here is Black, Latinx, Asian Pacific American, women, and others. And so when you see different marketing campaigns out in the world that are targeting or referencing or very much so inclusive of diverse audiences, that is the type of work that my firm does.
So you mentioned earlier that you've been an entrepreneur for 14 years. Can you maybe share some of the early lessons that you learned from your entrepreneurial days? Maybe some things that you wish you hadn't done?
So I would say probably one of the earliest lessons is understanding how to move forward in the face of fear and developing a relationship with fear in which fear does not have the ability to stop you from moving forward. And I take you there because I'll go back to sitting at my desk at IBM Global Services, which that's where I worked for 5 years, and a phenomenal company. But I was sitting at my desk and I knew that it was time for me to leave. I knew that I should turn in this resignation. And I was overcome with fear in that moment. And that was probably one of my first relationships with fear on, do I stay in the land of familiar and the territory of what I know, or do I stretch, i.e., that's the name of the book, right? Do I stretch beyond this fear and expand and move in the direction of my dreams? That was my first time sort of using that muscle. I said yes to the stretch, and I've been saying yes to the stretch for the past 2 decades over and over again. So that's one lesson that would probably be my big lesson. And it was not just my lesson, but I've had a chance to also interview other dreamers. And it's so funny. I always listen. And at some point, that's the universal truth. This willingness to stretch outside of your comfort zone and move in the direction of your dreams. So that's one lesson. There's several others. I think another good one is the importance of giving yourself time to imagine and be creative and sort of get new, innovative ideas is very important, because it's so busy to be so busy that you can't hear or receive inspiration. So another thing that I would say I've learned over these years is being intentional about understanding my ideal dream environment to foster creativity. Other lessons is the importance of your network. You want to make sure that if you're setting out on this dream journey, you need to know who your dream champions are. And a dream champion is someone who is going to see the best of you and reflect back to you, you can do this. And so I could go on, but those are probably, I would say, I think I listed 3 or 4. So that's my top 3 or 4. But oh man, and Lisa, I could keep going.
Yeah, those are some great lessons there. Let's talk about your book for a second. The Big Stretch, 90 Days to Expand Your Dreams, Crush Your Goals, and Create Your Own Success. What was the inspiration behind the book?
So the inspiration behind writing this book was really wanting to inspire other dreamers to go for it. So at the time that I wrote this book, it was released in 2019. So at this point, I probably had been on a dream journey for at least like 16, 17 years since leaving my cushy corporate IBM job. And along the way, I realized that other dreamers would reach out to me and say, hey, I see what you're doing. I'm thinking about doing this. What should I do? And I would give advice and counsel along the way. And one of the things that I created was the Dream Project Symposium. And the Dream Project Symposium was a collection of iconic dreamers to sort of share the blueprint with professionals, entrepreneurs, and aspiring entrepreneurs. And this platform went on as a standalone symposium in Atlanta for 5 years. Now, what I didn't realize is how much knowledge I was getting. We curated over 200 amazing dreamers and was very blessed to kind of get all of this knowledge. And so I felt almost like a responsibility. If I could take all of the knowledge from my personal journey, in addition to from the Dream Project, right, and put it in a book and create a dreamer's blueprint, almost like a dreamer's boot camp, that if you're out here, you're listening, you have an idea, you want to get started. My idea was write this book and give you an action-oriented plan that moves you from that idea stage into reality. So that was the inspiration behind it. I wanted to write not only an inspirational book, but an inspirational action-oriented book. And it's designed that way. Literally every week, it's a 12-week course. Every week you're doing business exercises that you are working on your dream.
And I feel like that's something that's so needed, right? Because the journey can be very challenging and, even lonely at times, especially if you don't have in your network people who have done this. It's good to have, some sort of guide or resource that you can use to move along the process.
Yes.
So you talk about the different types of dreamers. Well, first of all, what are the different types and why is it important to know which dreamer you are?
So one of the reasons why it's important to understand what is the right path for you, it's very easy, at least in this world, to, especially the world that we live in, right? We're kind of bombarded looking into the life of others constantly by way of social media, right? Whether it's Facebook or TikTok or IG. So it's very easy to be influenced by others, or in some cases, and maybe it's not even you're being influenced by others, but maybe you're being influenced by society or your family's expectations. So what I wanted to do with every dreamer is, number one, say to them that you have the right to select a dreaming path that is right for you. Your dream path is as unique as you are. And everybody is not meant to be an entrepreneur. So people used to come up to me at Dream Project and say, I feel like I don't have big dreams because I don't have a desire to be an entrepreneur. I like the safety of my corporate job, or I like my job. And I almost would sense this guiltiness of an undertone for not being designed or motivated in a way that others. And so this whole piece of identifying what type of dreamer you are, essentially, I want you to know that it's okay because dreamers aren't the same. So what I've done is there's a dreamer's profile assessment that if listeners, you can actually go out there and take it to determine which dreamer type you identify with. My goal was to create a profile of the different dreamer types that I've met over the past 2 decades. And one, I want to give you freedom to see that there's so many different paths. So here are some of the different paths. One is what I call the careerpreneur dreamer. And a careerpreneur dreamer is typically someone who really thrives working in team environments. They thrive working in structures, and they want to be a part of teams to build something. In this case, it may be someone that's working within corporate America, but what's important for them is they must be able to align their passion and profession, and they need to be able to make an impact within the confines that they work in, like the corporate structure or within the structure. So an example there is I have a great friend that she used to work at Home Depot. She's no longer there, but she started the multicultural marketing team at Home Depot, and they created a phenomenal program that did a lot of work in HBCU communities. I think it was called Retool Your School was this marketing campaign. But I use Melissa as an example as a wonderful careerpreneur. She's living her dreams. She's living on purpose. She wants to do it within corporate America. So that's careerpreneur. The second one is a make it happen dreamer. So a make it happen dreamer is really an individual that was sort of born to be an entrepreneur. These are those individuals that they really don't do well within your typical 9 to 5. They don't really even do well in the structure of working in team environments where they perceive any type of confinement. So an example on a make it happen dreamer, I would use Sean P. Diddy Combs. If we take a look at him, Diddy has been on an entrepreneur journey, creating platforms over and over again. And he kind of has that mindset that he will create and build his own business. Now, make it happen dreamers, whether it's your local flower shop or your local gym owner, you need to know make it happen dreamers usually have a high tolerance for risk. Because you can't set your clock on, okay, I get paid on the 1st and 15th or the 15th and 30th. And so that's a make it happen dreamer. The third one is what I call a hobby dreamer. And a hobby dreamer is someone that desires to have a career, but they also desire to nurture a passion, but they don't want to put the responsibility of their passion to take care of them and their families. And that's completely fine. So a hobby dreamer that I featured in the book is someone by the name of Christina Todd. She works within the financial industry, and she was well aware. She told me, Teneshia, I love my job in a sense of it provides me the financial stability that is right for me and my family. But I have all of these hobbies, and I would like to do something with my love of travel, my love of food, and my love of fashion. And so she started a blog called No Special Occasions, which is pretty popular. It's on IG as well. I mean, she grew the community to like over 35,000 people pretty shortly. And she is someone that I identify with as a hobby dreamer. So she has her job, but she nurtures her passions in another environment on the side. The fourth one is a CEO dreamer. And this is someone that works within the corporate structure, and maybe you've always known that at some point you want to take all of your experience and you do want to venture out and start your own initiative. And so the CEO dreamer is someone that works within a traditional career path, a traditional corporate environment, and they want to eventually chart an entrepreneurial course, and they're willing to take the calculated risk. I guess you can say I'm a CEO dreamer because I made that transition. And then the last dreamer is an activist dreamer. And that's individuals that they see a problem in the world, they see a problem in their community, and they're called to answer that problem, and they're willing to dedicate their life to answer that problem. These are usually your nonprofit leaders. These are leaders of movements. So an activist dreamer that I have here that listed, one that's featured in the book is Christine Kane. And she started an organization called A21 that was really all about fighting sex trafficking of young girls. And she's dedicating a good portion of her life to be the answer to a solution that pained her heart. And so those are 5 different profile types. If you want to know which dreamer you are, go out to thebigstretchbook.com and take the Dreamer's Profile Assessment. And I highly encourage that, because the more you know who you are and what path is right for you, the more likely you can start navigating a course that is right for you.
So let's say that, someone is listening, they go on the website, they take the assessment, and they're able to identify which type of dreamer they are. What's the next step?
Ooh, all right. So what's the next step is the book is broken out in a 4-phased approach. In an ideal world, we want to work with you on a dream that's within your heart that we can now move from concept to reality. But I'm only going to ask you to bring one goal to the table at a time. The beauty about the big stretch is evergreen. You can use it over and over and over to keep realizing different goals. But in this particular case, it's going to be one goal. So after you take that dreamer's profile assessment and you're clear on the type of dreamer that you are, in phase 1, there's a lot of exploratory exercises that you're going to do to get you clear on what type of dreamer you are, understanding your dream environment, detoxing from poor habits, but last but not least, having you write what is the goal and the vision that we're going to be working on. And so you're going to paint that picture. And ideally, I want you to let's cast it for 1 year, whatever that picture is. So if you're listening and you identify as a hobby dreamer and you realize that you want to start a blog or you want to become an influencer, whatever that may be, we have you hone in on what is the goal that we're going to be working with you to do. That's phase 1 in dream. Then we move you to design. And in design, you're going to have a set of tools that helps you essentially put together a plan, because a dream without a plan is an amazing dream. And so there's exercises in that will allow you to not only write that vision, but then start working backwards on what do you need to achieve in 90-day increment. And that's where the 90-day comes in, because we're going to start working with you on the first initial 90 days. There's quite a bit of exercises in there that just helps you define your blueprint for this goal. The opportunities, your network, your champions, identifying what steps you will be doing over the next 90 days, because we want it to be actionable. And so that's design. We're really working with you to almost write like your personal business plan for your dream. Next, we move you into a phase that's called dare. All dreamers have to be daring at some point. So we have exercises that just basically try to get you comfortable with taking bold steps in the interest of your dreams. And that's just sort of like a muscle that gets you ready for the long-term journey. And then the last phase is do. And in this phase, it's giving you the tools so that you're prepared to do your dream for the long term. And we give you a lot of stories of other dreamers to say, hey, yeah, I started out in a dream and it was like rosy until I got the first major, battle scar and realized that I was going to have to fight for my dream. And so we really also try to give you an understanding of what does it mean for you to commit to living a life of purpose, living out your dreams over the long term. So that's the 4 phases that we take you through.
Love it. So a lot of our listeners are either entrepreneurs or pursuing or thinking about pursuing entrepreneurship. And when you consider those things, a very important aspect is finances. So we like to understand our guests' money story. So can you maybe share an early money memory and how it impacted your views as an adult?
One of my earliest money memories that impacts me even until this day would be, it dates back to, it was the summer of 3rd grade. My mother worked at this, I guess you'd call it like a elderly daycare center. And she got the approval from the big boss to let me go to work with her every day. And so I would go to work with her. And I noticed that the big boss came on Fridays and he passed out checks. And in my little 3rd grade mind, I wanted to know, what can I do to get a check? I want a check. And what can I do to get a check? In my mind, the first thing that I did was I went around the daycare center and I was looking for a need, like an unmet need. What is happening here? Is there a problem unsolved? Is there an unmet need that I can service? Well, the big need that I identified was that the place really could use a good cleaning. They did not have a consistent cleaner coming in. Now, why this unmet need stuck out for my 3rd grade mind is because I was well aware of the skills that I could do. I was like, well, what could I do? And I was really good at cleaning. I'm actually still really good at cleaning. And so in my mind, I was like, that's it. I'm going to meet with the big boss and I'm going to tell the big boss that I would like to be of service to him to meet this unmet need. And I'm going to ask for money for it. It was all in my third grade mind. I worked it up. The big boss came over one day. He's passing out the checks. And I say, Reverend Jones, may I have a meeting with you? He said, yes. And I put my pitch out there. I noticed that no one's coming in to clean the center. It's really, really dirty. That was the unmet need. And I am willing to offer my skill set. I'm a really good cleaner. And I would like to do this. You know, are you willing to hire me to do this? I didn't anticipate. He says, yes. He says, how much money do you want? And the crazy thing is, in my third grade mind, I hadn't gone that far.
That's not surprising.
And so, but the number came, and to me, this is a lot of money. And I said, I want $25 a week. And he looked me in my eyes and he said, deal. And he shook my hand. And that lesson in that moment was so big for me because it taught me these things around finances. Number one, when you are looking to earn those dollars, make sure that you always stay in a place of service from a reciprocal standpoint. So what is it that I can bring to the table in exchange for this dollar value? The second thing that it taught me was sometimes you have to be bold to ask for what you want. And the last one I would say is when the opportunity exists, you need to know your value and your worth and be confident in asking for that value and worth. And so those three lessons learned in the summer of third grade, they're the same principles that I still have to remind myself of now running a business.
That's amazing. So Teneshia, I'd like to end the interview with a round of rapid fire questions.
Yes.
Can you tell me about a book that changed your perspective on life?
A book that's amazing that every dreamer in the world should read is The Dream Giver by Dr. Bruce Wilkinson. That is one of my most favorite books. Dr. Bruce did an amazing job of writing this story. It was like almost like a fictional story that captured the universal truth of a dreamer's journey in a very simple way. And I love it. I just absolutely love it. And it's a quick read. But if you read it, it inspired me as a dreamer all over again. And it's called The Dream Giver by Dr. Bruce Wilkinson. It really reminds you in the end that the dream that's within your heart was given to you. And in this case, I believe the dreams are given to us by God. And that's really what the Dream Giver also says. And it's a beautiful reminder that we're in this relationship with the ultimate dream giver. And during our period on the planet, we get to co-create with the dream giver and realize these gifts that we've been given by God.
Never heard of it. I might have to check it out. What's the one thing about money you wish you could tell your younger self?
Probably, and I need to tell my grown self this one too, would be that it's abundant, that money is abundant. Like believe in the abundance of money. And the reason why I say that is, and I even challenge myself with this one now, is I kind of go back and forth between what I would call a scarcity mindset and a mindset of abundance. A scarcity mindset is usually grounded in fear, and an abundant mindset is grounded in love. And so for some of my younger experiences, I heard a lot in the home with my mother, in the home with my grandmother, that things were tight, that we had to wait on payday, or that we didn't have enough money. I heard it so much that it burned a fear-based scarcity mindset in my little mind that kind of now shows up from time to time in my adult mind, that money is scarce and it's hard to come by and you have to fight for it. And there's not enough of it. It can almost put you in a mindset of struggle, survival, fight. And that's not a good place to dwell or live in. That's not a good energy place to come from constantly. That can be tiring and it can be exhausting. And it will also prohibit you from being giving. And so what I would tell my younger self, hey, little girl, I know you hear all of these adults saying that it's hard and that there's not enough, but I want to tell you the truth about it. The truth about money is it is abundant and it will come but it doesn't even need to be your most motivating, driving thing in life. Let passion and purpose be your motivator and your driving thing in life. And trust me, money will come. You don't have to hold on so tight. You don't have to worry. You can trust God that money is abundant.
Love it. So what's the best investment in yourself you have made so far?
The best investment in myself that I've made is the willingness to design a life of purpose, because that happens it's still going on right now. So being a yes to designing a life of purpose and living a life on purpose, that is the best investment I've ever made in myself.
Fill in the blank in 3 words or less. Money to me is
a vehicle to do good works.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I would like my legacy to be, I empowered dreamers to dream and take action.
Well, Teneshia, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you. Can you please tell our listeners where they can find you, where they can get the book?
Yes. So Anne-Lyse, thank you. And I want to say thank you to you, because I know the commitment that you have to your listeners to do this podcast and to constantly bring new content. For the listener, you're getting this amazing content, but I already know that Anne-Lyse, you are a commitment to this community. And I want to say thank you for your commitment. And thank you for inviting me into your family. And so for all of the family that would like to stay in contact with me, you can buy the book anywhere books are sold. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble. If you want to learn more, go to thebigstretchbook.com. The beauty is there are already exercises there that you can sort of download and engage with. And I would love for you to get the book. And then if you want to stay in contact with me, you can follow me on all major social channels, especially Instagram, at Teneshia J. Warner is my handle. So at Teneshia, Teneshia J. Warner.
Right. Thank you, Teneshia.
Thank you.
That was Teneshia Jackson Warner. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Coming up on the podcast next week, we have motivational speaker Patrice Washington. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Dreamers Podcast. You can find the episode show notes and all of the links mentioned at dreamoflegacy.com. If you liked today's episode, here's what you can do to support me and help more dreamers discover the podcast. Follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate and review the podcast to help the podcast gain more visibility. Share the podcast with your family, friends, and coworkers. And if you really enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to tag me at thedreamers.podcast on Instagram and let me know what you liked about today's episode. All right, dreamers, that's it for today. I will see you back here next week for another episode of the Dreamers Podcast.
Okay, dreamers, time to build this legacy.
This podcast is for general information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax, legal, financial planning, insurance, accounting, investment, or any other kind of professional advice or services. Please consult with an appropriate tax, financial, or legal professional to receive appropriate advice based on your situation.
Sunday, Skincare Day, is one of the ways I keep my sanity in these crazy times. Dreamino is an all-natural, Black-owned skincare brand carefully handcrafted by parents who could not find the proper care solutions to address their family skin problems. All Dreamino products are made of organic and high-quality ingredients, meticulously chosen to give your skin the smooth results and the glow it deserves.